Victor Wembanyama, huh? How about that? Was he the best rookie center that played tonight for a Texas team in San Antonio? Straight off the bat, Mo.
You know what? I'm gonna say he was. I know what Derek Lively did and all of that, but that stretch we got in the final couple minutes from Victor pretty much seals it for me. I think that's a no-brainer there, Dave.
Yeah, 126 to 119. The Mavericks beat the Spurs in Victor Wembanyama's debut. There were over 200 media credential requests that were fulfilled by the Spurs. Mo, scale of 1 to 10. How annoyed were the Spurs and all the media?
You know what? I think we always talk about the they want to keep things quiet and whatnot, and they don't like all the attention. The attention went away for the past few years, and they hadn't mattered. I think they like this. I think they like it just fine. I think this is an exciting time for them. I think we're going to I don't want to get lost in that. That's such a small thing there. I'm sure they're annoyed with some media members, but overall, I think they're perfectly fine.
Okay, us aside. Well, let's I guess let's briefly just talk about the game. The Spurs started out. I mean, they look great. They scored 43 points in the first quarter. If I'm remembering correctly, it was like a 160 offensive rating for the first quarter. Now, the Mavericks defense is just not very good.
Didn't exist. No, we don't have to say not very good. Just didn't exist.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say for much of the game that was the case. Now, the Spurs just they couldn't hang there at the end. But how'd you feel about the way that the Spurs started out? Obviously, Victor Wembanyama gets his first points. First 2 baskets made, Mo, were threes, and there's something about a guy who's 7'4" scoring multiple threes before he even scores a 2-pointer that kind of messes with my basketball mind a little bit. But that's the world we live in now.
Well, I mean, the first one was off a pick and pop situation. The second one was in transition, where he runs to the corner in transition instead of what we're used to seeing, which is run down the middle of the lane. And that's where he gets his 2 threes from. It was interesting. I mean, to start out, they started Jeremy Sohan at point guard. I know they had done it the past few preseason games. So again, they're continuing to try this tall man lineup that they're going with. And I thought, like, okay, that's interesting. Personally, I think I'd go with Trey Jones, but I understand what they're trying to do, whether it be successful. But you got to like the juice they came out with. The crowd was amped to start this game. Like, the energy was fully there. Like, this was a fun start to the game, Dave.
Yeah. And to that point about Jeremy Sohan, listen, he's not a point guard, but if Wemby is a 4 and you want your best players to play together, that's really the only spot that's open, because Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell, Devin Vassell looked amazing in this game.
Right.
Those guys are going to play. And so if you're just married to the idea that at least for this season, Victor Wembanyama is a 4, we're going to pair him with a 5. And I think that's been pretty clear. That's what the Spurs want to do. Then you want to get Sohan the ball and you want to get him out there. And by the way, Devin Vassell, pretty good with the ball in his hands. So it's not like Sohan has to be this guy that creates all this offense off the dribble. You've got Devin Vassell out there, and obviously it's the Spurs. It's gonna be a lot of motion. I mean, they're gonna do stuff to get creative. So I didn't hate it. And I love the size. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I was high on the Spurs.
I understand it. Again, like, I understand the whole reasoning behind everything that they're doing with that. One thing you said there that I think people just have to adjust to. It's not when they'll play Victor Wembanyama at the 5. He's a 4. That's it. Yeah. That's how they're going to play him. And everybody get used to that. I think he's always going to be paired and going to be better with another big man. I think that's going to be the case, at least for the very good portion of his career. Maybe down the stretch as he gets older, it would be different. But early on, and really, I think in the middle stretches, this guy's going to be playing on the perimeter more. You're going to need a big guy. You're going to need a guy like Zach Collins, who I also thought played really well for them tonight.
Yeah, he was tough. I mean, and again, Victor, with his mobility and his length, he actually provides more value if he's not just like this drop big. I mean, if he's able to roam a little bit, if he's able to, again, switch on the perimeter. I mean, we talked about this a bit on Nerder today, but you saw in this game right away, first quarter, he's altering shots, getting guys to think twice before threes. I mean, Derek Jones Jr., ran into one of those. Oop, wait, no, I'm not doing this. And I just think
A
it's
lot
amazing.
of
You
it.
know,
There's a play down the stretch in this game where Kyrie comes off of a screen. He thinks he has a opportunity, and Victor's sort of in a no man's land or center field kind of position. But again, with his length, as Kyrie would normally take this shot, he sees Victor come over. It's like, nope, looks to kick it out. The ball gets swung to Tim Hardaway Jr., and Victor still goes from that position to give a contest to Hardaway. Like, that's pretty impressive in that regard. Just again, it's what we talked about on Nerder, like you said. The length of Victor is such a problem for everybody to deal with. It's going to deter shots. It's going to make things difficult. I mean, this again, the fouls were the problem. Let's just be honest.
well, and yeah,
that was the issue.
That was it. So he was in foul trouble early in this game. I mean, he had 3 fouls in the first half and then picked up an early fourth one. Look, a couple of these are ticky-tack. The Grant Williams, the elbow. Grant Williams just caught him. He had his elbow out. Grant Williams grabbed that elbow, and it was a great defensive. What do we call this? Gamesmanship, right? We're not going to call that a flop. And then got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. I think the moving screen. It was a little bit of maybe.
Oh no, that was legitimately moving.
Yeah. That was a real moving screen, but but that was on instances a couple of times in this game, Mo. I'm going to swing it to you, where maybe it's like speed of the game stuff, like not quite up to the speed of the game for an NBA regular season game. And I felt like that was a moment there where he was just a hair late in recognizing he needed to be in position for that screen.
It wasn't even that. It was also that actually goes back to our point about Sohan as a point guard, right? Sohan's got to recognize that and not go and wait. And that's something that we see a lot of guards do and struggle with, that where they pick up a foul on their big man because of that situation. He also needed to wait a minute. But in general, he needs to be smarter. The reach from the we talked about it, like the dig where he goes in and he's going to make plays from that from time to time. But when you have 3 fouls, you can't reach like that. You have to know you can't do that. And I think that's the stuff that he'll get better with. That's something that just over time he'll adjust and get used to. It's just a shame because when he was on the court, it was pretty exciting. It was pretty fun to watch him.
And it's funny because he had an opportunity where he was guarding in the corner and he was able to dig down on Luka for a double, and it was crazy. Now Luka waited it out. This is why he's one of the greats, and he found Tim Hardaway for an open 3, but it took him a minute. I mean, it was pretty wild to see a guy with that sort of length coming in as the second in a double team, cutting off the wing.
Yeah, I mean, it was. It's just, this is the stuff everybody's going to adjust to, and the best players will figure out how we're going to do it. Just nobody's used to playing with somebody this long, this quick, this agile, and I think there's just going to be a while before players fully adjust on a regular basis to just seeing this. This is going to be tough for everybody in terms of how they deal with them.
Yeah. So we should talk a little bit about the fourth quarter for Wemby and his sort of, I don't know if we're going to call it a takeover, but I mean, he came in
close,
5 fouls,
close to a takeover.
Yeah. What finishes up the game with 15 points, was 3 of 5 from 3, 6 of 9 from the field, had 5 rebounds, a couple assists, a couple of steals, 1 block, which was a help side block, his first block in the NBA. He blocked Kyrie Irving. I mean, that's kind of wild. But the takeover there, Mo, I mean, fourth quarter, first game, 5 fouls, and he looked confident, especially that mid-ranger from the baseline that he shot over Grant Williams. He just went straight into it, looked smooth, was looking to score. That was a great sign to me.
It was funny. It actually brought me flashbacks to Wemby's second game at Summer League, where he tried to make a comeback for the Spurs against the Blazers. Again, Summer League game. Nobody really cares. I'm probably the only idiot that remembers that. But the whole thing there, it just had that flashes to it. Look, it come out of a timeout. The Spurs run a high pick and roll. They get, I forget who it was on the weak side, lifting up, puts Irving in a bad spot. It's a lob dunk for Wembanyama. Come down the next possession. Dribble pull-up 3 from Wembanyama and drills it. A few more possessions later, the Spurs run an action to get him a good face-up, the one you're talking about, that baseline jumper, it's him setting a ball screen coming off of a double sort of cross screen. It's something the Rick Adelman used to run all the time for Kevin Love. I think it was C44 or something like that, or 44C. And that was kind of those things where started to kind of see the stuff that the Spurs can run with him and get going with him, and the players getting confident. You could feel him getting juiced up as well. And as our guy, Joshua Kid, who's not Josh or not Jason
It's not
Kidd?
not Jason Kidd. Yeah. And the J is silent. It's Esh.
You should be in a press conference right now. But he's right though. It did kind of stop after that, right? Not a lot of touches for Wembanyama after that, and I think that might be a little bit disappointing for us. But you can kind of just feel this is where the Spurs are going to struggle as a team.
Yeah. But before we do questions, I do want to say, I mean, the rest of the basketball game does matter. The Mavericks, Luka Doncic, we didn't even know if he was going to play in this game, although I assumed he would. He looked pretty good, Mo. 33 points, 14 rebounds, 10 assists, had that crazy Euro step there down at the stretch where he just essentially hit the emergency brake. Kind of crazy how good Luka looked in that first game.
I mean, Luka's Luka. I mean, it's just that simple. I mean, the three that was the dagger is really the big one there. I just think it's kind of amazing. It's just a ho-hum night for Luka. That's all. Triple-double, 30-point triple-double. Just another day in the office.
Yeah, no big deal. Again, and Derek Lively, man, 16 points, 10 rebounds. Looked fantastic. And
he was great.
I mean, this is the first legit bouncy lob threat that Luka's been with. And I mean, right away, just was able to make an impact for them with his energy. I wonder how long they can keep him out of the starting lineup. I mean, he's
got to be starting by next game, Dave. It's got to be
huge energy difference, right? Like huge energy difference. And after Jason Kidd had kind of, he hit us with a curveball, said he was going to start two rookies, then didn't start either one of them once the actual game started. So I don't know. Maybe he fooled himself on this one because Derek Lively, pretty good. All right. Let's take some questions, Mo. One of the benefits to doing something just for YouTube. What free agent moves do you think the Spurs can make, and what does Victor need to make them a playoff team? We kind of talked about this a little bit. I doubt they're going to make any moves, but the playoffs are not like, they're not out of the question. Like this team maybe could sniff. I mean, if things go well, right? Like they could sniff that 10th spot.
Dave, I love you. Always the optimist,
the
start of the season already all hyped up. This team's not even going to sniff the playoffs. Like we just saw it down the stretch of this game, right? Like how they handled crunch time and whatnot. I think to answer the question in terms of what the Spurs are going to need, I mean, it's hard to say, but I think you need to just have strong point guard play. And like everybody else, you need to surround him with some shooting, and you need to surround him with toughness. Because I think, and one more thing, you need to put rebounding on the floor because Victor's not going to rebound. If they're going to focus a lot on having him leak out and make a lot more runouts, he's not going to get a lot of rebounds. So don't think those rebounding numbers are going to be crazy high for him. So you need to have somebody that can. And I think that's going to be an important thing for the Spurs to make sure they sort of identify who they want with that and get that, because rebounding is going to be an issue and it's something you're not going to get from Victor.
Yeah, especially with how much he's going to be guarding on the perimeter, how much he's going to be the helper coming over. I mean, you're right. And this is where I think the search ultimately for, who's the five going to be next to him longer term. I mean, they did just sign Zach Collins to a 2-year deal because, they're the Spurs and they don't really have a lot of, money that's tied up for the next couple of years. So maybe it's Zach Collins. I thought, like you said, his toughness matched well. His toughness and physicality matched pretty well. And also he can stretch the floor too. So gives you on offense a little bit of you've got two bigs who can pop, two bigs who can pick and pop and do stuff. So I don't hate the Collins pairing so far. Here's a good one from Chris Jameson. Are you impressed more with Wemby's offense or defense in game one?
It's funny. So I did a one mo thing on Victor's defense about his defensive range, but I think I'm more impressed with his offense. And I think it goes beyond the just this one game, but goes into the preseason. Just in terms of how comfortable he looks offensively, I thought the offense would have been slower to arrive to everything. I thought the defense was going to be constant. I mean, even in his first game when he was terrible, he was still pretty good defensively. I think
Yeah.
that's something that the offense I thought might take a little more time, but he's already looking fluid and confident, and they're already running actions strictly to get him looks and face-ups and whatnot. I think that's where I'm probably the most impressed with after game one.
He's got great feel, and I really like, especially the Warriors preseason game and then the game tonight, the aggressiveness. In this game tonight, early on, he took that pull up three in transition. Like he's like feeling the rhythm of the game. Had a moment in that 1 minute and a half stretch of highlights that he had against the Warriors where he's actively calling
Sure.
for the three in transition. I'd like to see stuff like that from young guys, especially. But I'm with you. I was not expecting him to be the force. And that jumper that he hit over Grant Williams, just smooth, comfortable, fourth quarter, tight game. I think those are such positive signs for him.
Yeah, I think one thing we haven't really, and I mean, we as the collective, we haven't really talked enough about how competitive he is.
Yeah.
He's a gamer. He wants to go. He wants to battle. He wants to be in these things. He's going to want the ball down the stretch. He's a gamer, and that competitiveness goes a long way for a young guy.
Yeah, and my scout brain goes to those images of him when he was in foul trouble on the bench. He's standing up. He's involved. And I mean, look, it's game one and he's a rookie and there's all these other ways that things can go, but that's a pretty good sign. He seems like a guy who's probably going to wind up as a leader in the locker room just when you see how put together he is. So I don't know. I don't know that I've ever been as high on a single player in their first game ever. But I think it was all positive signs. Somebody definitely
winning the championship this year.
Somebody definitely has to step up and stop Wemby, because I mean, that's the thing, Mo, is that if it all comes together, how do you even stop him? We talk a lot about Giannis, we talk a lot about Jokic, and this guy now, he doesn't have the body of those guys yet, but theoretically he might. But he's got a lot of both of those guys. I mean, he's got the jumper. Yeah, he's definitely never going to get to the Jokic level body-wise, right? That's a statuesque human being. But the physical gifts, the length, the basketball IQ. I mean, he's going to be. It feels like he's going to be in the mix for one of the best 2 or 3 players in the league, like sooner rather than later. That's the craziest part. Just the combination of everything.
Yeah, let's knock on wood on that one. I think he has those skills, and I think he has that ability. It's whether it can be fully realized and actualized in all of those things. It's going to be hard to stop him. And this is one of those things like, hey, man, it's these guys, some of these dudes, when you have the greats, that's the point. They're great because you can't really stop them. And I think that's the challenge of what you have.
Here's a Dallas question. What did you think of the Dallas defense after the first quarter? Felt like it was pretty passable. I mean, if you go quarter by quarter, they did a much better job, obviously, but hard to do worse than they did in the first quarter, I would say. The Spurs might not be like, I mean, this was the 29th best offense in the league last year, right? So maybe I haven't seen enough of Dallas's defense to judge them, but I would say that with Lively, I give them a chance, and with the rest of their bigs, it's gonna be rough.
I mean, that's why Lively has to start. It's that simple. He just helps them more defensively, gives them a little bit more oomph on that end of the floor and things like that. I think it's just kind of a no-brainer in that regard. I mean, I'm not kidding. I'll be shocked if he's not starting game 2. And if he's not, I'm just going to be looking at Jason Kidd going like, well, what are you doing? What's the point here? Let's see what their defense looks like against tougher opponents. I mean, again, like, here's the thing about the Spurs team. They're really young. They're really going to be trying to figure some stuff out on the fly. I mean, they're willing to experiment with Sohan as a point guard. Like they're going to play with a lot of things offensively and defensively in rotations and whatnot. Dallas was able to kind of take advantage of that. We'll see how it plays out for them the rest of the season. But the defense is the most important thing for them because I think the offense will take care of itself between Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. I think he'll figure itself out. It's the defense for the Mavs.
Yeah.
If they're going to defend, that will take them to the next, a little further along.
Yeah, and I think that this is a great point right here. That the Spurs need to learn, need to know how to play through Victor and involve him more. But again, this is one of these things where young team, you're gonna figure things out. I think a lot of this is they're gonna, we talk about this quite a bit. Pecking order is important, and it was pretty obvious there that Wemby was sort of the best player on the court in that one little stretch. The defense adjusted, and then the Spurs young guys are trying to figure out, okay, now how do we adjust? And I would love to get to a moment where, and he's a rookie. It's up to him to figure this out, to try to, maybe get a mismatch in transition, try to maybe go to the high post and see if he can create some out of the high post when the defense is starting to load up on him.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is going to be a process for the Spurs through 82 games. Like they're literally talking about on the broadcast, Pop telling the guys in practice that they have to throw the ball even higher for Wemby. Like that's where they're starting at. So like I'm not worried now about him not getting touches at the end of games as much as like I expect that towards the end of the season. It's a process for them. Like they're really just starting the whole thing. This is game 1 of 82 for them. They're going to learn through the whole course of the action of what Wemby can do and what he can't do. What are the right spots for him? What are the wrong spots for him? How do we get him the ball? How do we get him in those spots? And so on. So I think it's going to be, this is all part of the learning process. And guys, everybody just buckle up. There are going to be games where he gets it all the time. And then there's going to be games where he gets it for some of the time and they forget to give it to him. This is part of, again, being a young team. I'm going to keep hammering that point there. This is a very young team. A lot of these guys have a new toy to play with that they don't know how to play with yet, and it will take almost the entire season.
Yeah. This is actually kind of where I'm at. The fact that this guy can contest threes from the paint. I mean, the Klay Thompson blocked 3 last week is still, I've run it through my brain over and over and over because it's Klay Thompson. He is, they did the sports science thing. He's got like the fastest release in NBA, at least modern history. And Victor blocked it, and he was below the free throw line when Klay caught the ball. Mo, how the heck do you even like harness this for your defense? Is it just something that happens? It's like magic. This is like a secret wrinkle of our defense that we don't account for, but it's there. Like, I mean, is this a package you can roll out?
I mean, this is the cornet jumping contest, the cornet contest on steroids, basically. I mean, like with his go-go gadget arms, like it's hard to kind of just fathom it. But like he's blocking threes off guys who get their shots off quickly. Like that's the thing that's really scary. And as Taylor was saying, coming in from the paint and doing that stuff is really the thing. Like, I have a clip up on X that you can see where he literally gets Kyrie to turn around and give up a shot, and then he goes and contests the 3 right after that. Like that's what we're talking about with him. It's to me, it's not a matter of when does he win defense. It's not a matter of if he wins defensive player of the year. It's a question of when.
And how many times? Yeah. By the way, this is funny. If you had 2 Wembys on one team, they'd be impossible to play. This is why we did a little 7-footer draft, me versus Tim Cato. That's why I took Bol, because I was thinking, you know what? I've got Victor Wembanyama. I can put him and Bol together. And what's that going to look like? Good luck, guys. Wemby not crashing the boards hurts him, Mo, especially with some offensive rebounds. Do you think that this is a good idea, right? Is the leaking out maybe bad or is it good for their floor balance?
I almost know the exact play Paul is talking about because I felt like that was a big play down the stretch there. And I think that's just one of those things. The leaking out for me personally is when you contest a 3, leak out. If you're in the paint, rebound. That would be my ideal scenario for him, and that'd be my philosophy. I think, listen, the thing about leak outs in general is there are times it comes back to bite you. It doesn't matter whether it's a three or a shot in the paint or whatnot. There are just times where, like, hey, you shoot the three ball, the guy who shot the ball gets the rebound because his guy ran down the court. It's going to happen from time to time. I think overall, and if the Spurs can really harness getting those leak outs and really taking advantage of it, at the very least, they'll even out. I mean, they got an and one on one of those leak outs during that fourth quarter run that I think was a pretty important bucket as well. So, it's something we're just going to have to live with and be like, this is going to be tough, but you're just going to have to sit on it for a little bit, Paul, and just deal with it.
I also think it's going to be case by case, night by night. If the other team is a big time offensive rebounding team, then it's gonna hurt you, right? Like that's normal to me, night to night basketball stuff.
But that's also the philosophy, right? Okay, if they're going to crash the rebounds, they're going to crash hard on the offensive glass. When we get the rebound, we're going to have the advantage. So right. I think that's kind of the thinking of it. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. Let's keep an eye on it. Again, we're still really early in the season. Like we're one game in. Everybody is at this point. We're gonna have to figure this out as we go through.
Having two Wembys on one team would crash the universe. What's funny is I heard that Victor Wembanyama broke 2K. I mean, if you think about it, right? Like this is I haven't played 2K in a while, but I heard that just that player character model broke the game. And if you think about it, a 7'4" guy who blocks everything, probably on a video game gets every rebound and can shoot threes does seem like, I don't know, Mo, like when we were kids, that's a creative player we would have made. We definitely would have done that. For sure.
If you want a really funny thing, shout out to a good friend of mine, Kareem El-Belady. When we were younger, that's exactly the player he made, except the dude was as thick as Shaq as well. But that was his creative player. That was who he created. So he was ahead of the times.
Yeah. Okay, Mo. As we wrap this thing up, any closing thoughts on the first sighting of Victor Wembanyama?
Even though the foul trouble sucked, we got some good stuff out of this, and we saw some really interesting things. I'm just excited for the whole, hopefully we get a whole season of this from him and see how this kind of continues on. I mean, guys, he's as advertised is what I really think is the more important thing. He can do the stuff we've been talking about and looking for in a long time. I think this is going to be really interesting.
Yeah. You want to answer this question real quick before we go?
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I mean, I don't know if I know you're saying it's early in the season. I think they're just going to tank games anyways because they're just, again, not good enough as a young team. And in the Western Conference, it's stacked and on a nightly basis playing a lot of high-level talent. But I think I'm with you. But the other thing, too, just remember, they have a ton of draft picks in their sort of cupboard. They have some Atlanta draft picks coming their way. They have a Charlotte draft pick that I think is lottery protected the next few years, but that becomes second round picks. Sorry, I know Charlotte won tonight. That I don't think will convey. I think those will be second round picks in the long run. But I think they'll have a lot of bites at the apple there. And I think they have a lot of guys, a lot of young guys that they can turn into the players they need down the road.
I would also say this is a team. I think that learning to win is important. It's a part of the development process. And this is a team that when you look at it, I mean, they are big. They're extremely athletic. They play very hard. And Victor Wembanyama is a generational defensive prospect and probably a generational offensive prospect. This is a team that wouldn't surprise me if they overachieved, right? I mean, we talked about this a little bit on the show. What needs to happen for that? I mean, I do think that it's pie in the sky, and I'm an optimist. But, man, if everything clicks, I mean, this is a team that I want them to make the play-in. I'm just going to say it. I'll just say it. I'm rooting for them to make the play-in. I want them to make the play-in. Let's go. For Mo to Kill, I'm Dave DeFore, and this has been a special Victor Wembanyama debut reaction edition of the Athletic NBA Show. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're going to try to do a bunch of these this year. So thank you guys for joining us in the chat over here on YouTube. Have a good night.